What's up, guys? Jordan McAbee here, fantasyracing.online.com. Today we're going to talk about Dover and the Drydene 400. All right, we got Dover 400 miles, 400 laps at Dover coming up on Sunday. Dover's it's a unique racetrack. It's probably the best way to put it. Just like Darlington last weekend. So Dover is 1 mile in length, so it's technically a short track, but it's banked. It has some steep banking, so I've always thought it races more like like a mile and a half track. That's kind of what I've compared it to, but there's no great comps, I'd say. And then just to throw everybody through a loop even more, Goodyear's going to run the left side tire from Darlington and Homestead this year. So a lot of stuff to look at. Running the 750 horsepower package, just like last week at Darlington, just like the other tracks that are a mile and less in length, as well as the road courses. So we'll look at those numbers. We'll look at Dover. Typically 2 races here per year. In addition to last year's races, there were the most comparable would be 2017 and 2018 as far as this package. But let's go ahead and so my algorithm predicted finishing order. We got Truex and Hamlin, neck and neck, right there in the power index in the upper 40s, and there's a pretty decent sized gap down to Harvick, projected to finish third. Kyle Larson right there in fourth, and then Logano. Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, another decent gap there to eighth, and William Byron, who just keeps clicking off top 10s after top 10 after top 10. And then Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick rounding out top 13, and really the only drivers above the 20 in the power index. Algorithm doesn't love Alex Bowman this week, probably because he's sucked most races this season. But then again, we'll talk about him a little bit later, but he's had, I think, 3 top 5s in the last 4 Dover races, so definitely can't count him out. Starting lineup, we got Truex, Hamlin, Byron, Larson. The most likely dominators are starting up front, which makes this a very interesting race. Very interesting excuse me. Very interesting when it comes to DraftKings. I feel like DraftKings did very good with pricing this weekend as far as the drivers go, and with the scoring the way it is, with fastest laps coming into play with DraftKings, I feel like FanDuel, it's pretty easy to make a lineup this week. DraftKings, it's interesting, and there's many ways that we can go. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about DraftKings with this and strategies to take, and different strategies there are, and how this race is possibly going to play out. But we got Truex, Hamlin, Byron, Larson, top 4, Harvick starting 5th, Kyle Busch 6th, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Chris Busch are rounding out the top 10. Got Christopher Bell starting 11th. Big names starting in the back, further back. We got Kurt Busch starting 28th, Cole Custer starting 30th, Eric Almirola 32nd. Other than that, not a lot of surprises. I need to correct this on this starting lineup post, but Justin Haley's out this week. Josh Berry will be racing for him in that 77 car, and Josh Berry will be scored from 23rd starting spot. So just FYI there. As far as my projections go, we'll look at those really quick. I'm not quite done with this whole post yet, so you'll see projected ownership isn't in there yet. But Truex projected the highest by a significant margin over Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, and then a bigger gap down to Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, Keselowski and Logano all in that, mid-50s range. We'll talk about strategy when building DraftKings lineups a little bit more. With pricing this week, it's going to be hard not to fit or try to fit, Truex and two of the three of Truex, Larson, Hamlin into one lineup. FanDuel lineups are similar, or FanDuel projections are similar, sorry. Truex the highest, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, all above 80, and then, it gets a little bit more squished together there with, like Harvick, Kyle Busch, Logano in there. Just because we're not getting the projected fastest or the fastest laps points with FanDuel, you don't need to have those two dominators. So typically Dover's a two dominator race. Typically we have two drivers that lead 100 or more laps. So last year, if you look at the races last year, one thing to note, so NASCAR did a Saturday-Sunday event, which one is just awful, especially for fantasy players, bettors, everything else. It's like same-day qualifying. It's awful for fantasy players. It's awful for bettors, which is, not to get off on a tangent here, but I'm going to a little bit because it irritates me. Bringing back qualifying, yeah, that's great. Bringing back practice, that's great. But same-day qualifying is the worst idea ever because who really wants same-day qualifying and craves that? It's the old gray hairs of the sport that love the sport. No, nothing against them for loving the sport, but you know what? They're not going to grow NASCAR. You know who's going to grow NASCAR is people in fantasy NASCAR, people that bet on NASCAR. You know who's going to get turned away from NASCAR when they institute same-day qualifying? Bettors and fantasy players. Time after time, NASCAR continues to alienate these people. They won't embrace the fantasy aspect. They won't embrace the betting aspect, and it's horseshit, and I don't want to sound like a gray hair myself, but the downfall of the sport will probably be not embracing that. Just like all the states that continue to not embrace it and not allow it. I live in Ohio. Ohio has not made it legal here yet, and it's stupid. Anyway. So last year, it was a Saturday-Sunday event, or two events at Dover. The rule was cars had to use the same, or teams had to use the same cars for these races, so they were shortened down to 311 laps each. First race we saw, I'd say two dominators. You could throw in Austin Dillon there. His was more strategy. He didn't have the third best car, but Hamlin led 115 laps and won. Truex led 88 laps, finished second. Then Austin Dillon, I'm pretty sure it was on fuel strategy and staying out, finished 15th, one lap down, but led 49 laps. So 2.5 dominators. Second race, Kevin Harvick led 223 of the 311 laps, just absolutely dominated. So one dominator in that second race last year. But typically, like I said, we see a lot of two dominator races here at Dover. 2018, the second race, Kevin Harvick, 251 of the 404 laps. Second best was Almirola at 64. That's not... I consider this a one dominator race, but pretty much every other race with or at Dover is two dominators. So you got to believe that's what we're going to see here this weekend with the Drydene 400, and you got to believe that it's going to be two of the three are going to be Truex, Hamlin, or Larson. Obviously, there's a chance that there could be, Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick or someone up there that gets those dominator points. But if you have to put money on it, it's the guys that are running best all year, and it's Truex, Larson, and Hamlin, and they're all starting top four, which makes it interesting for DFS players playing DraftKings. This, like I said, this reminds me a lot about back at Richmond. It went against common thinking to pick Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. in DraftKings because they started 1-2. You know, it's risky enough to take one person on the front row, let alone both. But that ended up being the play, and I think that's what's going to happen this week at Dover as well. Is it's going to be two of those three starting in the top four and then filling out your lineup. You know, with guys that not big name guys. You know, I think we're going to rely a lot on either Hamlin, Truex, or Larson to get those dominator points, and that's how I perceive the race playing out, and that's how my projections perceive it playing out. So yeah, we'll take a quick look at so we ran the 750 horsepower package this year at, I believe, at Daytona Road Course. I'm not even going to sit here and try to say that you should compare the Daytona Road Course to Dover. But we had it at Phoenix, New Hampshire. Did we race New Hampshire this year? Like what? I should probably just look it up, shouldn't I? So we raced the 750 horsepower package at Phoenix, not counting Bristol Dirt. That is just way too out of left field, same as the road course. Martinsville, Richmond, and then Darlington last week. So 4 races. Those are the 4 races that I have compiled to look at the stats for. Just to get an idea of, we know who's been good on this package. It's been Truex, Hamlin, Logano. We all know it. But I had to visualize it, and I had to put numbers behind it because that's how my brain works. So average finish-wise, Truex 2.0, Hamlin 3.3. Got William Byron up there at 5.8, Joey Logano 6.0, and Chase Elliott 6.5. Average running position over those 4 races, Denny Hamlin 2.7, which is ridiculous. Martin Truex Jr. 4.1, Joey Logano 5.1. We know who's good with this package. Ryan Blaney, a little bit surprising. Average running position is 7.1, then William Byron, Kevin Harvick, Christopher Bell, and Chase Elliott. What I really wanted to look at, though, was fastest laps. And over those 4 races, Truex and Hamlin account for almost, actually it's right on the nose, 450 fastest laps. The next highest is Kyle Larson with 87. And by the way, Kyle Larson has led 1 lap over those 4 races. Ridiculous. Logano next, 79. We know who's fast here. We know who's been fast in this package, and we know who's good at Dover. Now it's just going to take getting those, getting the right combination, and hitting on 2 of the 3, or maybe even 3 of the 3. I don't even know if you can put a solid lineup together with all 3, but we'll try. On Sunday, and that's how pricing is in DraftKings this week. Like I said, that's going to be the main focus of this video. FanDuel I feel like is a lot easier than DraftKings this week, so I'm going to focus my time talking about DraftKings. So like I said, Dover, so we had 2 races last year. We'll look at those real quick. A little bit weird with the inversion between the 2 races, as far as if you won the first race, you started 20th the second race, and that can mess with average running position. But Truex the highest, 5.4, Joey Logano 5.6, Kevin Harvick 6.0. Harvick had the most dominator points by a good margin. You see there, 124 fastest laps, 223 laps led. Really, it was him and Hamlin, and which was how it was for most of the season last year. Going back to 2017, 2018, looking at those 4 races, Chase Elliott, average finish 5.0, Truex, Daniel Suarez, when he was in the top equipment, had an average finish of 6.8 over those 4 races. Larson, Harvick, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jimmy Johnson, sorting by average running position, we got Truex, Harvick, Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson. The weirdest thing is Hamlin wasn't good in this package. Not in this, specific particular package, but the most similar, I'd say, to what we were running was 2017, 2018. And he just wasn't, nothing standing out with Hamlin in those 2 years. Average finish of 13.0, average running position 11.5, 32 fastest laps over 4 races, and 0 laps led. So just something to note, this weekend, on DraftKings, Hamlin's the third highest priced guy, so you can probably expect a bit of more people to try to fit him into a lineup to have a little bit extra cap space, but will he pay off with those Dominator points? Because any of the 1, 2, or even all 3 of those guys that you pick, between Harvick or Truex, Larson, and Hamlin, you're going to need to get Dominator points out of them. So let's go through the starting lineup this week. We'll just go down the list. So Martin Truex Jr. starting on the pole. You got to love him. He's just crushing every single week. If he doesn't lead 100 laps here on Sunday and, put up 30, 40 plus fastest laps, it's probably going to be because they had a problem. They've absolutely crushed this 750 horsepower package. It doesn't matter if it's been during the day, during the night. They're the hottest team right now. Someone make a case against Martin Truex Jr. right now. I want to hear it. I can't think of anything at all. You look at his track record here at Dover. It's just ridiculous. The most no-brainer pick. The only reason you're not picking Truex this week is if you're in a single entry and you want to be different than everybody else. He's the play. He's the chalk. He's starting on the pole. He's got the best car. He's got the most speed. On to the next one. That's how it is. Kyle Larson, he was really good here. And Chip Ganassi equipment, you know the rule by now. If he was good in Ganassi, he's great in Hendrick. He actually won here his last time. Top 5, pretty much every single time he came here. Led 100 or more laps in 3 of his last 6 starts at this track. My only concern with Larson is he doesn't seem to be great in this package this year. 87 fastest laps. Yes, it's the third highest, but it's not up to the levels of Truex and Hamlin. And 1 lap led. Yes, I believe Larson can win this race. Yes, I believe he can dominate. I'm just a tiny bit hesitant. I love pairing Truex and Larson together in a lineup, as do my projections. So I can't. It's nitpick shit that I can say against Kyle Larson this week, and even then, unless he hits a wall or has a mechanical issue, there's no reason to think Larson won't crush. As always, starting 4th, should have a very good race. Denny Hamlin, he's been awesome in this 750 horsepower package. He's been decent, I'd say, at Dover. He's kind of had ups and downs. That 2017 and 2018 seasons kind of concerned me a little bit, but at the same time, top 5 in 2 of his last 3 races here. He's led 100 or more laps in 2 of his last 3 races here. And we all know what Hamlin does this season. Pretty much everything except win. If I had to make a case, we've seen these fastest laps drop off with Hamlin lately, but definitely a contender, starting 2nd. If Truex doesn't dominate early, it's going to be Hamlin. Yeah. Chase Elliott, I really like this week, especially if you want to get off of, picking 2 of the big 3. I really like Hamlin Chase Elliott this week. My only concern with Chase Elliott this week is he's not putting up fastest laps right now. And so unless he gets the lead on Sunday and leads a good portion of this race, that 10-7 price tag is pretty risky. Even though he does start 8th, he has a little bit of place differential potential. You look at his record here. You look at Chase's record here at Dover, and it's hard not to like it. Where's he at? He's had a few blunders, but at the same time, top 5 in 7 of his 10 starts here. Seems to always be a contender. He won here in 2018, led 145 laps in 2019. Go back to the second race of 2017, he led 138 laps. Definitely don't mind Chase Elliott as a pivot off of one of the big 3. Pairing him with a Truex or pairing him with Larson. Going that route. Brad Keselowski, he starts 15th, so there's definitely place differential upside. My problem is I don't see any dominator upside with him. It's possible. But as far as his record here at Dover, I'd say it's nothing special. He hasn't had a top 5 here since 2016, which is definitely noteworthy. So, like in DraftKings, you're paying up, essentially, 10-3 for Keselowski. You're going to need him to get some dominator points and finish top 5, I think. So, I could definitely... I think you need exposure, but I don't love Keselowski by any means. So last year he had 8 fastest laps between the 2 races. You look at 2017, 2018, 65. Even though so this is one thing I definitely like to look at is comparing fastest laps to laps led, especially when you have like a 4-game span or 4-race span to look at. I like to see the fastest lap number at least be comparable to laps led, and definitely like it when it's more. So I really like that Kyle Busch had 120 fastest laps compared to 70 laps led, because I tell me he had a really good car. He just probably he didn't lead. He didn't get the track position to lead. Whereas Keselowski, maybe so what this tells me, and this is just a general statement. It's definitely not true. You should always look into stuff like this. But so when Keselowski has 155 laps led and 65 fastest laps, I want to go look into that and see how he led those laps. If he led those laps on a fuel gamble, he didn't really have that great of a car. You know what I mean? So that kind of discrepancy between fastest laps and laps led, I always like to look into. It's always something I pay attention to. And definitely like to see when, like with Kyle Busch here, more fastest laps than laps led tells me he had a better car than what we really knew, I guess, during that race. That's the best way I can put that. Kyle Busch, I really like Kyle Busch this week. It's hard not to. The way he's running right now, the most noteworthy thing with Kyle Busch is he's starting to put those fastest laps up again, which are huge in DraftKings. Starting 6th, him and Harvick are pretty much in the same boat here, so we can talk about them. You look at 2017. This is 2017, 2018. Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, solid, solid dominator points from both of them, solid average running position from both of them. I think Kyle Busch is running better than Harvick right now. Last year, Harvick dominated here at Dover, but again, we're not seeing that at all this season. Kyle Busch here last season, not great. 25 fastest laps between the two races. You look at the 750 horsepower package stats for this season, and Kevin Harvick, 38 fastest laps through the 4 races. Kyle Busch, not much better at 40, but like I said, I feel like that team's getting better. They're getting faster right now. I think Kyle Busch could be a surprise dominator this week. And Harvick, too. I mean, there's potential there with Harvick, but definitely, I think Kyle Busch has a higher upside than Harvick this week. Joey Logano, he's starting ninth. My projections really like Logano in FanDuel. I think he has top 5 upside. My algorithm has him projected to finish 5th. My only concern, I think I talked about this maybe in my Slingshot article this week, but he doesn't have his crew chief. We saw last week with Keselowski, maybe that was just coincidence that the 2 car was not good at all. But he didn't have his crew chief last week either. If that hurts Logano, just something to be keep in the back of your mind. But again, we look at the 750 horsepower package. It's Truex, Hamlin, Larson, Logano, and it's not really that close. I'd even throw it's Truex, Hamlin, Logano, and then Larson's kind of close. But it's Truex, Hamlin, Logano are the ones that are constantly staying up front. Like I said, I think Logano has top 5 potential this week, despite somewhat shaky history here at Dover. 8th or better in 4 of his last 5 here. 1 top 5 in his last 12 starts here. Maybe a little ambitious to have him projected 5th, but that's what my algorithm says, and that's what I'm going to kind of go with is that. So I think there's upside there, but like I said, you're relying on place differential. Now that we're getting down to this mid $9,000 range, you can do that, and I definitely like Logano as a pivot off of Bowman. There's going to be a lot of people on Bowman this week at this price. And with his record here at Dover, you look at, let's pull up Bowman quick, top 5 in 3 of his last 4. People are going to look at that. They're going to look at he's starting, 16th? Yeah, 16th. So 3 of his last 4, he's finished top 5, and he's starting 16th. Sounds like a no-brainer, doesn't it? Until you remember the fact that he's disappointed. I like Alex Bowman has won me a lot of money in DFS. I'm typically always overweight on Alex Bowman. But, oh man. These finishes, dude. 17th, 18th, 38th. He won at Richmond, 34th, 22nd. He finished 3rd at Atlanta. It's like an abusive relationship. There's always that one good day. You get your ass kicked the other, 5 days, 6 days. But there's that one good day. It keeps you staying there. Until this team starts putting up more consistent numbers, it's hard to trust him. And a week like this, where I feel like a lot of the public will be more on Bowman because of his track record here and because he's starting 16th. Yeah, I like pivoting. I like pivoting to Joey Logano. I don't like pivoting to Byron, but I like pivoting Joey Logano off of Bowman or Harvick or Kyle Busch. Still need Bowman exposure. There's still a good chance that he finishes top 5. He's starting 16th, so there's place differential potential, but man, he's got to start getting those finishes because it's getting old. William Byron starts 3rd. We know what to expect. Like when do you find? Give us one race where you get any dominator points, dude. Even so, he won at Homestead, put up solid dominator points. Great run at Las Vegas, put up 25 laps led, 31 fastest laps. William Byron is just so unpredictable. Then he'll throw duds, like not duds. These aren't duds. He still finished top 10. I feel like people aren't talking enough about William Byron this week, or not this week, this season. What he's doing, he's having the Matt Kenseth championship year. Just getting good finish after good finish, and the thing is he's not in contention to win races, and he's not leading. So it's easy for a lot of people to overlook him. But DFS, when DraftKings prices him at 8,900, I can't tell you the last race that I've had significant Byron exposure. It's one of those. It's just like Alex Bowman. Show me something. Just Byron starting up front as well. He's just not doing anything with it as far as dominator points. He's getting solid finishes, but that's about it. Pull up Byron's record here quick. At Dover, 7 laps led and 6 career starts. Yeah, he finished 4th here last year. I don't know. I feel like every week we say this could be the week that Byron, goes out and leads laps, and then he doesn't. And I won't have much Byron exposure. I'll say that. My mind could change by Sunday, but not likely. Kurt Busch, okay. So my rule of thumb with place differential is I hate paying up for place differential. Kurt Busch is a little bit too high priced for me this week. Starts 28th. His record, if you're at $8,700 and you're starting 28th, I want solid top 10 potential at least, and possibly top 5. He did have 2 top 5s here in 2018. What have you done for me lately? No finishes better than 9th over the last 4. Not to mention, what is that? 3 top 5s in his last 18 starts here. Just not and he's another one of those guys that you just don't get the dominator potential. Averaging 9 fastest laps per race with this package. At Dover, he's averaging about 10, 11 per race in 2017 and 2018. 0 in the 2 races here last year. It's hard for me to, especially with how I see lineup constructions going this week. I'm not a big fan of Kurt Busch. I know the place differential potential is there, but I'm just not a big fan. Ryan Blaney, I love the price. So I didn't actually realize how well he's been doing with this 750 horsepower package. 4th best average running position. Average finish at 10th. Obviously that has Martinsville in it, so it's going to skew it a little bit, but Blaney hasn't been awful. And I think I mentioned in my algorithm article this week is he's running well at tracks that typically he doesn't run well at. Richmond, he ran better than expected. Darlington last week, he ran better than expected. Dover, you look at Blaney's recent, runnings here at Dover. Solid average driver rating. Led 37 laps in the second race last year. 0 top 5s in 10 starts. 2 top 10s. Hasn't had a top 10 since 2018. But in this price range, and especially, right there between Eric Almirola and Kurt Busch, yeah, I like Blaney. My projections like Christopher Bell a lot better than Ryan Blaney. I don't know a lot better. I know they like him better. Bell projected at 41.78, Ryan Blaney 39.88, so it's right there. So most of the time, I'd probably go Bell, safer. A little bit more place differential with Bell. But I could see being overweight with Blaney in tournaments for sure. Again, how many? Does he have the dominator potential? Probably not. But if, that's what pivots are for. If Kurt Busch has problems and Almirola has problems, you pivoting off of those guys to Blaney or Christopher Bell or Blaney and Bell is going to be the right move. And you're gonna if Kurt Busch and Almirola have problems on Sunday, it's gonna wipe out a ton of lineups. Those should both have significant ownership for Sunday's race. Almirola, if you read my FanDuel article, it's the same thoughts I have with him and DraftKings. Teens play. He's not priced high enough to not play him. My projections really like him. You look at the 750 horsepower package this year. Average running position for him at 16.2, average finish of 18.5. He's not going to get any dominator points, but he starts 32nd. He's been a teens driver here at Dover pretty much forever. You know, you look at the career average finish of 15.8. Teens, like, it's one of those you kind of just have to eat the chalk. But like I said, I do like pivoting to Christopher Bell. In that Gibbs car. He starts 11th. I think Bell has, top 7 upside, top 5, possibly. But definitely a pivot off those safer options of Kurt Busch and Almirola. Matt DiBenedetto starting 18th. There's potential here. So DiBenedetto's record here at, sorry, I probably sound like freaking Clint Boyer there. DiBenedetto. You guys have probably seen that, the tweet of all, like the mashup of all the ways that the announcers mispronounce Matt DiBenedetto. Matt DiBenedetto. I'm pretty sure though Rick Allen was not involved in that mashup, which is surprising as hell because he doesn't even know what frickin' day it is, let alone who's on the damn track, or what sport he's covering. All he knows is back up through the gears, and then throws in 5 sponsor names. Like that's literally the only thing that guy's good for is his voice. Get a job on radio. Get him off of TV. But DiBenedetto had that 7th here in 2019. Overall, though, he just seems to disappoint. But you have to like how that team's running right now. He's starting 18th. Again, it's a pivot game. A lot of this week is going to be finding the places to pivot. Do you pivot off of the Truex, Hamlin, Larson, or do you pivot here down below with DiBenedetto or Custer, or Reddick, Austin Dillon? So DiBenedetto, 12th or better, pretty much 14th or better the last 2-3 months of racing. So don't like the price in DraftKings, but worth exposure, if you're trying to get off this Almirola chalk. Cole Custer, again, it's chalk. Dover was a bright spot for Custer last year. Finished 10th and 11th in the 2 races. But I don't see... This 10th was Talladega. You take out the restrictor plate, he hasn't finished better than 18th. I'm pretty sure all year. Does it get it done this week? Possibly. If he finishes 18th, that's 12 place differential points. It's not awful. Again, I'd rather pivot. Go to Tyler Reddick, go to Austin Dillon. So, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, definite upside. Austin Dillon, 3 top 10s here in the last 9 starts. Constant, mid-teens finish. I wish he started a little bit further back, but he starts 14th. Not to mention that team has been running really well this season. They got 4 top 10s in the last, 7 races? I will say my projections they don't hate Austin Dillon. It's probably the best way to put that. And same with Tyler Reddick. My problem with neither of them should get major should get major dominator points. So that's where my issue starts in this price range. You're really relying on on finish position, so I would rather go Austin Dillon and take that $200, lower price than Tyler Reddick. But that's just me. Eric Jones, yes, he outperformed last week at Darlington. Don't expect it to happen again, but I didn't expect Darlington to happen. So it's possible. But don't love him. Starting 23rd, I'd love him more if he was in the mid-6 range. Yeah. Just not liking it at all. I probably won't have much Eric Jones, to be honest with you. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I think you do need exposure for Stenhouse. So we look at average finish of 16.0 in this 750 horsepower package. You look at 2017-2018 Dover. Average running position of 15.9 for Stenhouse. Last year, Ricky was not very good. But he starts 20th, and I think you need some exposure to Stenhouse. You look at his recent track record here at Dover. Typically a teens driver. I mean, yeah, he has some not very good races, but at the same time, top 10 in the first race last season. He had a 9th here in 2018. Typically a teens driver. I wish another one of those, I wish he was a little bit lower priced, but that's what we're dealing with. Bubba Wallace continues to suck in that 23 car. It's going to be, give me something. But once again, like I pointed out last week with Darlington, he's putting up 2 or 3 fastest laps a race, which can definitely be helpful in DraftKings. As far as his record here, career best finish of 20th. Maybe, or some exposure, but nothing crazy. Ryan Newman and Chris Buescher, they were bad here last year. Newman hasn't had a top 10 at Dover since 2017, and that's his only top 10 here since 2014. And then Buescher was decent last year, I'd say. 14th, 16th, but before that he was awful. So, sorry, I got that a little bit confused. I actually like Buescher a little bit more than Newman. I feel like Newman doesn't get the top 10 potential that Buescher seems to be pulling off most weeks. But, I don't love either of them. If I'm going down this, you're going to need to go down this price range. But I like Chastain starting 19th. Newman and Buescher worth exposure, obviously, if you're going with 150 lineups, into a contest, but it'd be hard for me to put them on more than, 7 to 10% individually. Chastain, I feel like people are going to overlook. They're going to pivot, or not pivot, but just flock to Suarez here, starting 24th. In with Suarez's record. But Chastain, you look at what Chastain's doing. Look at this. Constantly in the teens. I think I talk about, and I have quite a bit of Chastain pretty much every week, and I think this is, again, it's going to be that case. Especially with how lineups are going to be built. This is going to be, if you don't pivot off those top guys, you're going to need to pivot down here, with Chastain. off of Suarez or with Suarez even. You look at 750 horsepower package this year. Ross Chastain, average finish at 16.5, average running position 19.3. Nothing great, but all you need is for him to, finish 14th, and he's going to be solid there at $6,500. Daniel Suarez, again, he is. My projections absolutely love Daniel Suarez this week, which kind of pains me to say, but he's really good here in decent equipment. Top 14 in every race before he went to Gaunt Brothers. We know how awful that car was. He starts 24th. He's $6,300. Like, he's a cash play, and I'm gonna have a ton of exposure to him. It's hard to see him finishing worse than where he starts. So, at $6,300, yeah. Michael McDowell. He's been awful in this package. Average finish at 27th, average running position 25.7. He's also been awful at Dover. 25th, 26th, 24th, 24th, 26th. Ooh, 22nd, 27th. It's not going to get it done. Not starting 21st. So, yeah, I'd be surprised if I had much McDowell this week. Chase Briscoe is a very interesting option, though. As a pivot off of Priest or even off of Suarez. So Briscoe starting 17th, which should scare people away enough. We know how not good Stuart Haas has been, but they've gotten better recently. How much better? We'll see. Briscoe finished 11th last week at Darlington. My projections actually like him a little bit more than I thought they would. He's actually in my optimal lineup for DraftKings this week, which is very surprising, but that's how it is. But off the top of my head, I can't say I love Briscoe by any means. Ryan Preece, starting 25th, he's under 6K. If you're not digging deep down into the back markers, he's definitely a pretty solid play. His track record here at Dover, he had 19th here in 2019. Other than that, he's been pretty awful. But you look at the next guy on the list, Corey Lejoy. Do you trust the equipment? I will note, last week, finally, Corey Lejoy's car got him to the finish line. He finished 22nd. I think that's the potential that Corey Lejoy has each week. If his car can keep up, he is a solid driver. Just, you can't predict mechanical issues, but Lejoy finished 23rd last year in the second race. That's his best finish ever at Dover. So hard to get super excited about Corey Lejoy, but he starts one spot worse than Priest. I'd say they both have similar upside. Anthony Alfredo. I will say Anthony Alfredo gets a lot of hate, but it's not like he's wrecking out every week. I don't get the hate. I don't get the hate on Anthony Alfredo. Starts 27th this week. I think my projections are a little bit, they don't love him enough. But I still think Priest and Lejoy have higher upside than Alfredo. Justin Haley is out this week due to COVID protocols, so Josh Berry will be in that 77 car. Josh Berry will be scored from 29th. Just keep that in mind. He's the same price as Haley was at $5,300 on DraftKings. I'm crazy. I'm not seeing a ton of upside here with Josh Berry. But he's been impressive in Xfinity Series. But that car is garbage. Then again, if it's the same car as Lejoy, there's no reason to think that Josh Berry can't muscle it to a 24th place finish, in which, at $5,300, then Berry's gonna be really solid. So I think there'll be plenty of people on Josh Berry this week. I'm not sure I see it working out though. Haley hasn't done anything in this car, and is Josh Berry that much better than Justin Haley? Maybe, I don't know. But at $5,300, that frees up plenty of cap space, to fit in those top drivers. So if I'm, cash lineup, I'll probably consider Josh Berry. Try not to go too crazy with him in tournaments, but yeah. So back marker cars, this might actually be the week that we're gonna have to we could use one, or yeah, at least, or not two. Do not put two on your lineup, but just with how this race could play out with Denny Hamlin, Truex, and Larson priced so high. Some of my top projected lineups this week have a BJ McLeod on there, or Josh Bilicki, Garrett Smithley. Typically, when I'm making lineups, I take these back markers, and unless we're at Daytona or Talladega, I completely take them out of even possibly being picked. But this week, I think it's worth having some exposure with them, depending on your lineup build. It's very hard for me to see any of these guys making the optimal lineup for what that's worth. Dover, we typically don't see a ton of wrecks, and that's what it's going to take to get those guys up, to where they would be in contention for the optimal lineup. But it's certainly possible. If it's going to happen this week, is the week that it probably will, just because of how things are priced up top, with Truex, Larson, and Hamlin. As far as lineups go, my top projected lineup, according to my projections, so the top lineup according to my projections is Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, Eric Almirola, Daniel Suarez, Chase Briscoe, and Ryan Preece. And yeah, I don't love it. Definitely don't love it. Second lineup, it's all right. I just don't trust Chase Briscoe. It's really hard for me to trust Stewart Haas right now. Second highest lineup according to my projections is Truex, Hamlin, Almirola, Suarez, and then instead of Briscoe, Chastain. Which, like I said, I think Chastain is a very solid option this week, and definitely like him as a pivot. Surprisingly, so the third highest according to my projections, and is the first one that digs down to the back markers, is Truex, Larson, Eric Almirola, Daniel Suarez, Austin Dillon, and BJ McLeod. I just don't. I'm not loving it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my head's not in the Dover race right now, but that's certainly possible. I'm not overly excited about this race like I've been recent races, in the season. But looking at FanDuel, optimal lineup according to my projections is Truex, Harvick, Logano, Eric Almirola, and Cole Custer, which is a very safe lineup. You got the 2-place differential plays and Almirola and Custer, and then you got, top 5 options in Harvick and Logano, and then Dominator option in Truex. And then, of course, you could, go off of Truex and go to Larson or go to Hamlin or Elliott. There's options there. But, yeah, I think that's going to do it. I think I've blabbed enough for this race. Good luck on Sunday at Dover, the Drydene 400. As of now, I plan on joining Brandon Cruz and his live YouTube stream at 10:30 on Sunday morning Eastern time. We're going to talk NASCAR. We're going to talk about DraftKings, DFS. It's going to be fun, so make sure you check that out. And if anything changes, I will let you know on my Twitter. But that's the plan as of now. It's Saturday morning, Friday night. So, yeah. Good luck, and see you next week.